It had been half a month since I'd last seen Willow Lancaster. In that time, a steady stream of rumors had reached my ears. They said she had chartered a private jet for the popular idol, Ethan Cole, the fuselage emblazoned with a blatant message of support, circling over the skies of Kingsbridge like a grand public declaration of betrayal. Even now, waiting for my car by the roadside, I could overhear the whispers of two women huddled under a nearby umbrella. "Did you hear? That Lancaster heiress, she's completely lost it, making such a huge scene for some celebrity. You're just finding out? I heard she's fighting with her fiancé, throwing a tantrum, but it's a bold move. He's the Blackwood heir, and she's embarrassing him like this. Wow, the world has finally gone crazy in a way I can't even comprehend." An invisible hand seemed to materialize from the air and slap me hard across the face. The sting was sharp and hot. I closed my eyes, trying to suppress the turmoil churning inside me. I wasn't angry about the money she spent. Squandering the Lancaster fortune was none of my business. I was furious because, for the first time in 16 years, her gaze wasn't on me. When the driver finally pulled up, he saw the look on my face and broke into a cold sweat, too terrified to even stammer out an excuse. I was in no mood to punish him for being late. My mind was entirely consumed by Willow Lancaster. Tonight's dinner was organized by Jason Miller, a get-together for our circle. He'd repeatedly stressed in the group chat that everyone had to be there. Willow hadn't replied, but she hadn't refused either. It was a tacit agreement, or perhaps she wasn't foolish enough to completely burn bridges in front of all our friends. I composed my expression and pushed open the door to the private dining room. Despite my displeasure, this was a matter to be discussed behind closed doors after dinner. Willow could afford to lose face, but my reputation, sincere Blackwood's reputation, was more precious than gold. As I approached the room, Trixie Bell's signature cutesy affected voice drifted out. "Willow follows him everywhere he flies. I heard he had a falling out with a brand over his endorsement fee, so Willow begged several other brands to work with him. She even had a massive fight with her grandfather over him, saying she wouldn't care if she were disowned." I turned a deaf ear and pushed the door open, my face a mask of indifference. Trixie's voice died instantly when she saw me. She bit her lip, stammering awkwardly, "Big B." I gave a slight nod in acknowledgement. Inside, Jason and Trixie were already seated. 4 others were playing cards on the sofa. Only Willow was missing. Jason and I had barely exchanged a few words when Willow walked in. I hadn't seen her in half a month. She had lost some weight, but she still wore that same noble and aloof expression when she faced me, as if the scandalous rumors engulfing the city had nothing to do with her. She sat down beside me as naturally as she had countless times before, dutifully taking the hot water to rinse my cup and plate. Her movements were graceful, flawless. This version of her was a world away from the obsessed lunatic Trixie had just described. I glanced at her, and the anger I had suppressed inexplicably subsided a little. Perhaps things weren't as bad as the rumors claimed, but I never expected that halfway through dinner there would be a soft knock on the door. A person in a clumsy bear mascot costume walked in. His steps were comical, but he clutched a large, vibrant bouquet of red roses in his arms, and in his other hand he held a Labubu doll, making for a conspicuous sight. The moment he appeared, I felt Willow stiffen beside me. Her gaze, once calm as still water, was now filled with surprise and even a flicker of light I had never seen before. Trixie was the first to break the silence, exclaiming dramatically, "Ooh, those flowers are gorgeous. Is that for me, handsome? But you don't need flowers to win me over, just a room key." I shot her a weary glance. The woman just loved to run her mouth. The person in the costume seemed flustered, but from beneath the heavy headpiece, his eyes were fixed on Willow. He spoke in a deliberately hoarse voice. "Today is our store's anniversary promotion. We're randomly selecting a young lady to participate. These are the prizes." Trixie immediately fell silent. Jason's face had darkened. He had organized this dinner, and now some riffraff had barged in. He instantly pulled out his phone to call the restaurant manager. Just as the man stood there, trapped in an awkward position, Willow stood up. She didn't even spare me a glance. She just waved at the costumed man and said in a light tone, "All right, I'll participate." With that, she quickly followed him out of the room. It all happened so fast that by the time everyone else reacted, the door had already clicked shut. In an instant, the room fell dead silent. Everyone's eyes, deliberately or not, landed on my face, speculating, pitying, waiting for the drama to unfold. I slowly picked up my chopsticks, took a piece of the braised pork knuckle that no one had touched, and began to chew. "This dish is good," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it was like a royal pardon. The tension in the room instantly dissipated, and everyone quickly agreed. Trixie blinked, cautiously adding, "It is good. You should have some more, Big B. If you like it, I could learn to make it for you next time." I put down my chopsticks, wiped my mouth, and looked at her, and at everyone else. "The dish is good," I said flatly, "but I don't like eating pig slop." An eerie silence once again enveloped the room. I had no desire to stay any longer. "I'm leaving," I announced, and got up to go. Outside the room, I called Willow. As expected, she declined the call. A moment later, a text message came through. It read, "Hubby, something urgent came up." I scoffed. Urgent? Playing dress-up with some guy was urgent. Willow and I had known each other for 16 years. We were practically childhood sweethearts. After we came of age, our families naturally arranged our engagement. I had considered it the most stable part of my life plan. She would always be the quiet, obedient Willow whose eyes followed only me. But now she had to pull this true love stunt. How interesting. I dialed Augustus Lancaster's number directly. On the other end, I recounted the events of the dinner with considerable embellishment, emphasizing how Willow had run off with a mysterious man in front of everyone. Old Master Lancaster coughed repeatedly in anger, promising me he would give me a satisfactory explanation. After hanging up, I looked at the only photo we had together on my phone, a graduation picture from our youth. In it, she stood behind me, her smile shy and content. I traced her face in the photo with my finger, the stinging pain in my chest growing sharper. "Willow Lancaster, you are Sincere Blackwood's fiancée. You have no right to deviate from the path I've set for you, and you certainly have no right to deviate for someone else. If you want to play games, then I'll play to the end. I'll break your wings myself and show you who your only sky is." After that day, I didn't see Willow for a long time. Rumor had it that Augustus Lancaster had given her a severe scolding and grounded her. All the resources she had thrown at Ethan Cole were withdrawn. The ridiculous affair between her and the celebrity finally died down. For now, my family was satisfied with this outcome, viewing it as a young girl's temporary rebellion. They believed that after some discipline she would return to the proper path. But I never expected that someone who wasn't satisfied would come looking for me himself. Every month I host a party on my family's yacht to cultivate relationships and give people a place to network. As usual, I hadn't reviewed this month's guest list, leaving it entirely to my secretary. I never imagined that Willow's lover would manage to sneak his way in. In the yacht's bar, the music was deafening. I was lounging on a sofa with Caleb Vance and a few other close friends, watching a scantily clad beauty dance on stage. She couldn't have been more than 20, and even in this environment you couldn't miss the starlight in her eyes. She was wild yet pure. Just as I was getting into it, a slender man stepped in front of me. "Mr. Blackwood?" I recognized the voice immediately. It was the man from the restaurant, the one in the bear costume. Ethan Cole. Without the costume, he looked decent enough. He stood there now, looking down at me, his brows furrowed, his eyes filled with undisguised contempt and disdain. I was completely baffled. "The hell? Who the fuck are you? Can't you see you're blocking the view?" Caleb Vance had a short fuse. He was enjoying the show, and being interrupted put him in a foul mood. "I'm Ethan Cole," he said, his voice dripping with self-important arrogance. Caleb turned to me, his eyes asking, "You know him?" I shook my head. He glanced at our other friends, and after a round of negative responses, Caleb shot to his feet, shoved him aside, and cursed. "Are you nuts? What the hell is your problem? Security, get him out of here." Ethan stumbled from the push, but he clearly wasn't one to back down. He swung his arm out, surprisingly managing to knock Caleb to the ground. I rubbed my forehead. Caleb held a grudge. Sure enough, the guys next to me all stood up, and Caleb himself grabbed a wine bottle from the table. Just as the situation was about to spiral out of control, Ethan let out a cold laugh. "Sincere Blackwood, if anything happens to me on your turf, Willow Lancaster will hate you for the rest of her life." His voice was confident and defiant, as if he had me right where he wanted me. I almost laughed out loud. I couldn't care less if Willow hated me. But I still raised my hand to stop Caleb. It wasn't worth creating a feud between Caleb and Willow over this. After persuading Caleb and the others to back off, I finally turned my full attention to Ethan. He was half a head shorter than me, with a slim build. His face could indeed be described as pretty. It was hard to imagine that Willow was into this frail type. "Willow doesn't love you," he said, getting straight to the point. I picked up my glass, swirling the amber liquid inside, and smiled. "And?" He seemed taken aback by my reaction. He froze for a moment, then declared righteously, "It's all your fault that Willow was scolded by her grandfather. It's your fault she's so upset you hurt her, and you can still act like nothing happened." I set my glass down, leaned forward, and stared into his eyes. "Everything that has happened to Willow is her own damn fault for not knowing her place. Cheating, throwing herself at someone. We're all adults here. You have to pay the price for your choices." The word cheating seemed to strike a nerve. His face changed, and he retorted, "You and Willow are just in a business arrangement. There are no feelings involved. We're in love. It's not cheating by your logic." I leaned back on the sofa and casually crossed my legs. "A business marriage doesn't count as cheating, so does that mean you speaking without thinking makes you an idiot?" I advised him, "Being a kept man is one thing, but if you're going to be a dog, you'll only eat scraps." Ethan's face flushed red and pale, his chest heaving. He gritted his teeth. "I'm already a famous actor. I make 6 figures a month on my own. I'm more capable than you, better than you in every way. You were just born with a silver spoon, wasting your days away only. I am worthy of Willow." Looking at his indignant face, I laughed. "You're not bad," I nodded, then pointed to the girl still dancing on stage. "But Kingsbridge is full of gold nuggets. You're one, and so is she." I paused, my smile vanishing, my gaze turning sharp as a blade. "But I'm not," I said, enunciating each word. "I own the gold mine." I couldn't be bothered to look at his ugly expression any longer. "And you don't have to stand here pretending to defend her. If you really want to stand up for her, make it official. Announce to the world that a business marriage isn't cheating, and you two are in love. I, Sincere Blackwood, will grant you your wish." "Why so quiet?" I sneered. "Scared? Afraid of losing everything you have today? Let me be blunt. You've had a taste of high society and you want to stay. But you picked the wrong person. Your talent and Willow's love are worthless to me. Power and money aren't transmitted like a disease, and class is an insurmountable barrier. The only reason you're even standing here is because of Willow. If she weren't my fiancée, you wouldn't even have the right to speak to me." My words were like a razor, slicing away his false pride one layer at a time. His face was pale, his lips pressed into a thin, stubborn line of fury. I stood up, brushing off non-existent dust from my suit, and delivered the final blow. "Mr. Cole, you've enjoyed the privileges that come with that custom license plate with the 5/8, haven't you?" I watched his pupils contract and smiled in satisfaction. "Willow probably didn't tell you. That car was an engagement gift from my family." Having completely shattered his self-assured confidence, I turned and walked away. I went out onto the deck. The sea breeze was salty and damp. I didn't head back to port immediately. I let the yacht continue on its course. I wanted everyone to see that some actor could publicly provoke me, Sincere Blackwood, and I could carry on with my party as if nothing had happened. The calm before the storm is often the most terrifying. The next day, the news that the Blackwood and Lancaster families had called off their engagement exploded across the internet like a bolt from the blue. My parents were ruthlessly efficient. The press release was watertight, officially stating that the two families would remain business partners while subtly attributing the broken engagement to Willow's personal conduct. In an instant, the tabloids dug up every last detail about Willow and Ethan Cole. The day Willow's mother brought her and Ethan to our house to apologize, my mother was trimming a prized orchid. "Sincere," Mrs. Lancaster said, her smile stiff. "The children are young and foolish. Don't take it to heart." My mother didn't even look up. With a sharp snip, she cut off a perfectly blooming flower. "If they're foolish, they need to be taught a lesson." My mother's voice was quiet but carried an unyielding authority. "A Blackwood daughter-in-law cannot be a person without rules or shame." Mrs. Lancaster's face turned livid. Willow closed her eyes, took a step forward, and looked at me, showing submission for the first time. "Sincere Blackwood, I'm sorry. I was wrong." I looked at her pale face, feeling not a shred of pity. She continued, I've always thought of you as a brother." Before she could finish, a scoff echoed from upstairs. "It was my sister, Isabella Blackwood. We don't need another charity case in this family," my sister said, leaning against the second-floor railing, looking down on them. "What, you still expect the Blackwood family to support you? Willow Lancaster, if you're going to apologize, show some sincerity." Willow looked up, her eyes dark. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "Next quarter, Lancaster Digital will postpone its new product launch by half a month," my sister said slowly. "Not enough." Willow bit her lip, as if making a monumental decision. "Lancaster will withdraw from the end-of-month project." I raised an eyebrow and finally spoke. Leaning back on the sofa, I looked at this shameless woman and said, "Since you're here to apologize, let's get on with it. Don't waste everyone's time." I meant Neil. Ethan couldn't take it. He gritted his teeth, about to say something, but Willow held him back tightly. In the end, she pulled a reluctant Mrs. Lancaster and Ethan Cole down with her, slowly bending her knees in front of me, my mother, and my sister. In that moment, I felt no satisfaction, only a cold, hollow emptiness. I watched her bowed head, the figure that had chased after me for 16 years, now humbled in the dust at my feet. I thought I would be pleased, but I wasn't. This was far from enough. I didn't want her submission. I wanted her to regret it, completely and utterly. The moment Willow knelt, Ethan's eyes looked like he wanted to eat me alive, but Willow never once looked up at me. The so-called apology ended with their humiliation and my family's dominance. I thought that would be the end of it, but Caleb Vance insisted on getting revenge for me. He organized a gathering and specifically invited Ethan Cole. I didn't want to go, but Caleb mentioned that the dancer I'd noticed on the yacht would be there. I was, admittedly, still somewhat intrigued by those wild yet innocent eyes. But as soon as I arrived at the bar, I saw Ethan, dressed in a sharp suit, surrounded by a group of people, holding court like he was the center of the universe, laughing uproariously. After the engagement scandal, he had somehow become a sort of warrior for love, his fame skyrocketing in certain circles. I was hesitating, about to turn and leave, when Caleb slung an arm around my shoulders and whispered in my ear, "Bro, tonight's for you. Payback time." Before I could stop him, he had grabbed a bottle of champagne and stormed over. "Good evening, everyone," Caleb's voice boomed over the music. "Let's give a big welcome to the man of the hour, the jet charter Romeo himself." Ethan Cole, all eyes instantly swiveled to Ethan, the smile on his face visibly freezing. Caleb grinned mischievously and aimed the champagne bottle at him. With a loud pop, the cork flew out, and a jet of white foam shot straight into Ethan's face. Ethan let out a pathetic cry, soaked from head to toe. The crowd stifled their laughter and offered a smattering of applause. I frowned and turned to leave. This kind of childish revenge was utterly boring, but I had only taken 2 steps when a wave of gasps erupted behind me, mixed with the piercing sound of shattering glass and the thick smell of blood. I whipped around just in time to see Ethan, his eyes bloodshot, clutching half a broken bottle, charging at me like a madman. "Sincere Blackwood, I'll kill you." Caleb was the one who had humiliated him, but he directed all his hatred at me. In a flash, a figure slammed into me from the side, shoving me violently out of the way. I stumbled but managed to steady myself. Looking down, I caught the person just as she was about to collapse. It was the girl with starlight in her eyes. The dancer, her forehead now bleeding profusely, still managed to curve her lips into a faint, dimpled smile. I truly could not comprehend Ethan Cole's logic. Did he have any idea what the consequences would be for cracking my head open? The police arrived quickly. Ethan and Caleb were both taken away. I carried the girl, Vivian Rose, all the way to the hospital. She didn't make a sound while they stitched her up. My mother and Caleb's older brother rushed over. My mom checked me over from head to toe before finally breathing a sigh of relief. I heard Willow went to the police station too. Even someone as lovesick as her lost her temper when she found out Ethan had almost become a murderer. The Lancaster family was in the middle of a critical power struggle, and he had caused such a massive mess. Vivian refused to settle privately and insisted on pressing charges against Ethan. That was my intention as well. I never showed my face again. That same day, I took Vivian fresh from the emergency room and flew to Qatar. I needed to clear my head, and I needed an opportunity to drag the Lancaster family into the abyss. Ethan had just handed it to me on a silver platter. I spent a month in Qatar, reading the daily updates my assistant sent about the Lancaster family. Their internal conflict was escalating. Derek and Diana Stone, the illegitimate siblings, had their father's backing and were using bribery and any means necessary to gain support. Meanwhile, Willow, tarnished by Ethan's legal troubles and the broken engagement, had completely lost her grandfather's trust and was struggling to maintain her footing within the family. It was time to go back. On the day of my return, I ran into Willow and Ethan at the airport. He was out on bail, probably there to pick someone up. Willow's gaze was fixed on Vivian's hand, which was linked through my arm. A delicate tattoo now covered the scar on Vivian's forehead, adding to her wild allure. She was young, stunning, and in stark contrast to the haggard-looking Willow, the comparison was devastating. When Ethan saw me, he looked like he was seeing his father's murderer. The fury in his eyes was practically shooting flames. Sincere Blackwood, he seethed. You despicable, heartless schemer. All you know is how to play dirty tricks. What kind of man are you? He roared. You really think you're so great? Willow told me everything. She's always seen you as nothing but a tool. She said that even if she had to marry you, she would have had my child and made you raise it. Willow's face flushed crimson. The once dazzling idol was now jumping around like a mad dog. I imagined whatever romantic filter she had seen him through must have shattered by now. I let out a soft laugh. Ethan, if either of you had a brain, you might stop and think, am I the tool, or was she just the Lancaster family's pawn for a corporate merger? Ignoring them, I walked past Willow. But as I did, I heard her call my name in a voice that was almost a whisper. Sincere, have you been okay? My body paused for a fraction of a second. In 16 years, she had never once asked me that. I turned slightly, looking at her face, etched with exhaustion and conflict, and slowly uttered 3 words. What's it to you? With that, I took Vivian's arm and walked away without a backward glance. Behind me, Ethan's roars grew even more frantic. Back in Kingsbridge, the first thing I did was announce that Voyager Corp., a company under my personal control, would fully support Derek and Diana Stone. The news sent shockwaves through the city. The Blackwood and Lancaster families were titans of the industry. My move was a public declaration that the Blackwood family had completely abandoned Willow Lancaster. Countless companies that had been on the sidelines instantly knew which way the wind was blowing and began to back the illegitimate siblings. Augustus Lancaster wanted to end the infighting, but the arrow was already loosed from the bow. It was out of his hands. The Lancaster family's internal chaos devolved into a feeding frenzy for capitalists. Everyone knew Derek was greedy and lecherous, and Diana was short-sighted, but no one cared. All they wanted was an excuse to carve up the massive prize that was the Lancaster Empire. After half a month of chaos, the illegitimate siblings had completely overpowered Willow. The time was right. I released the news of Ethan injuring Vivian with a bottle, along with the crystal-clear security footage, onto the internet. Vivian's fanbase was already massive and fiercely loyal. Combined with the public's distaste for Ethan and Willow's love story, public opinion exploded. The internet was flooded with condemnation. Before their PR team could even react, the Lancaster group's stock plummeted. Willow, her reputation damaged by Ethan and cornered by the illegitimate siblings, was trapped. Under the immense public pressure, Augustus Lancaster was hospitalized from the stress, forcing him to completely discard Willow as a pawn. Derek Stone became the rightful heir to the Lancaster group. As I read the news of Willow being ousted from the family's core leadership, Vivian wrapped herself around me like a vixen. You can't just use me like this, you know, she purred. I expect to be compensated. I rubbed my aching back and sighed. Youth. It was a wonderful thing. I casually secured her the lead roles in 2 major productions. After taking power, Derek and Diana immediately began purging Willow's remaining allies. Many long-serving Lancaster veterans were dismissed in humiliating ways. Dissent festered within the company. Drunk on their newfound power, they acted as if they owned the world. The higher you climb, the harder you fall. Debauchery by day, decadence by night. Within a few days, Derek was reported for inappropriate conduct in his office, and Diana was reported for embezzling company funds. Both were taken in for investigation. I was drinking water when I heard the news and nearly choked. My sister Isabella quickly handed me some tissues, frowning. Willow has already lost. Sincere, it's time to stop. I smirked at her. Sis, the game has just begun. My sister stared at me, stunned. From the very beginning, my target was never just Willow. Marrying her was about maximizing profits, but if I could kick the Lancaster Group out of the game entirely and become the maximum profit myself, wouldn't that be even better? Voyager Corp led the betrayal. All the dirt I had gathered on the Lancaster Group was leaked, flowing like water. With Augustus Lancaster in a coma and Willow's father being useless, they had no choice but to call Willow back to save the day. But the company's leadership had already been replaced. As a deposed heiress, she was powerless to turn the tide. Lancaster stock hit its daily limit down for 3 consecutive days. For 3 days, Willow and her father worked around the clock, trying every possible strategy to save the market, all in vain. In the end, they had to cut their losses, shrinking the company by more than half. The severely weakened Lancaster Group became a piece of meat for anyone to take a bite of. And I was the one who took the biggest bite. The day I seized control of the Lancaster Group's most vital project, my father threw a massive celebration for me at the company. The entire firm shut down as thousands of employees cheered for me after the party. My dad gifted me a black Rolls-Royce. The license plate was the only one of its kind in Kingsbridge, 5/8. Sitting in the car, I watched the city streets blur past the window. I didn't feel the expected euphoria. Instead, a growing sense of irritation gnawed at me. I had won. I had crushed Willow Lancaster and the entire Lancaster family behind her under my heel. So why couldn't I get the image of her last look out of my mind? There was no hatred in it, no resentment, only a profound sorrow, as if every last flicker of light within her had been extinguished. I had won. I had won power, money, and the reverence of all. I was the pride of the Blackwood family, an unshakable legend in the Kingsbridge business world. But I wasn't happy. A strange emptiness washed over me like a tide, threatening to drown me. Especially in the dead of night, I would find myself uncontrollably thinking of Willow. I remembered her clenched fists as she knelt before me, her vulnerability at the airport when she asked if I was okay, and that final look in her eyes, devoid of all light. I tried to numb myself with alcohol and work. I even grew closer to Vivian. But no matter how warm the body in my arms was, those eyes full of starlight couldn't dispel the chill in my heart. While processing the assets of the acquired Lancaster Group, I discovered an overlooked property, an old suburban house where Willow had lived as a child. According to procedure, it was to be cleared out and auctioned. That afternoon, on a whim, I drove there alone. The house had been vacant for years, the yard overgrown with weeds. I pushed open the creaking gate, the air thick with the smell of dust and old memories. Following my memory, I went up to the second floor and opened the door to Willow's childhood bedroom. The room was empty, most things having been moved out. Only a single carved wooden chest sat forlornly in a corner. It was covered in a thick layer of dust and secured with a small brass lock. I stared at the lock, a sudden powerful urge rising within me. I found a tool and crudely pried it open. The moment the lid was lifted, the scent of mothballs and old paper hit me. Inside, there were no jewels or girlish secrets as I might have imagined. There were only stacks of yellowed letters, several thick diaries, and at the very bottom, an old photo album. I picked up the album and flipped it open randomly. The first page was a photo of 3 children. It was faded, but still clear. A younger me stood in the center, expressionless. Beside me was a beaming Willow, and on my other side, a boy who looked remarkably like me. It was my younger brother, Silas Blackwood. The brother who, in an accident 10 years ago, had left me forever. My breath caught in my throat. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, the pain so intense I could barely breathe. I never looked at photos of us. His death was a wound in my heart that would never heal. With a trembling hand, I opened a diary next to the album. The handwriting was elegant. It was Willow's. The first entry was dated the day after Silas's accident. There was only one sentence, the ink smudged and blurred by tears. "It's all my fault." I kept turning the pages. Page after page, line after line, recorded a young girl's most secret thoughts. Sincere doesn't smile anymore. He never smiles. He's starting to hate me, I know it. If only I hadn't run into the road to chase that butterfly. If only I hadn't. Today I secretly put a white rabbit candy in his desk. It used to be his favorite. After school, I saw it in the trash can. I wore a new dress today. Mom said it was pretty. I walked past him, but he didn't even look at me. "Sincere, how can I make you happy again? How can I atone?" My fingers began to shake uncontrollably. So that was the truth of the car accident. I only knew my brother died saving someone. I never knew that someone was Willow. Everyone had hidden this fact from me. I picked up the topmost diary and flipped to the most recent entries. They were from the days just before she started her obsessive celebrity chasing. I saw him. In a movie. His name is Ethan Cole. The way he smiles, the way he plays the guitar. It's exactly like Silas. Exactly. I can't stop myself from wanting to see him, to be good to him. He's like Silas, alive. I thought, if I can make him happy, fulfill all his wishes, would that be the same as making up for my sin? Would this weight in my heart get a little lighter? They all say I'm crazy. They don't understand. I'm just trying to atone. I just want to see that face, the same as Silas's, keep smiling like that. Sincere seems really angry. He misunderstood me, but I can't explain. How can I bring up Silas in front of him again? How can I tear open that scar for him with my own hands? He would find me disgusting, wouldn't he? Using a stranger as a substitute for his brother. Drip. A hot liquid fell onto the diary, quickly blurring a small patch of ink. I touched my face and realized I was crying. Absurd. Pathetic. All my anger, all my revenge, my self-righteous victory, it was all built on such a ridiculous, tragic misunderstanding. She wasn't chasing some celebrity, she was chasing a ghost, a shadow she used for self-redemption. She hadn't betrayed me, she was just trying, in the clumsiest, most extreme way possible, to atone for a tragedy she believed she had caused. And me? What had I done? I took her profound, desperate love and guilt and twisted it into evidence of betrayal. I personally cast her into hell, crushed her under my foot, and reveled in her pain, all while thinking I was the righteous, wronged judge. I was the pathetic clown. I slammed the diary shut, dropping it back into the chest as if it had burned me. I fled the room, stumbled down the stairs, and ran out of that suffocating old house. I started the car, the engine roaring like a beast. I had to find her. I had to find her. I had to tell her that what happened all those years ago wasn't her fault. I had to tell her that the words died in my throat. What right did I have to say anything? I had personally destroyed everything she had, her family, her pride, her life, and now I was going to show up and tell her sorry. I made a mistake. The scenery outside blurred into streaks of color. I drove faster and faster, as if trying to leave the entire world behind. But no matter how fast I went, I couldn't escape the crushing weight of regret that had settled on my heart. It was so heavy it hurt to breathe. I used every resource at my disposal, searching for Willow Lancaster across the globe like a man possessed. I checked every entry and exit record, sifted through surveillance footage from countless cities. For 3 whole months there was nothing. She had vanished without a trace, like a grain of sand sinking into the ocean. In those 3 months I lost nearly 20 pounds. I stopped going to parties and turned down all non-essential engagements. For the first time I realized how empty my world was without all the noise. The business empire I was so proud of now seemed like nothing more than a gilded cage. I ended things with Vivian, giving her enough money to live comfortably for the rest of her life and several top-tier roles. She was smart. She didn't ask any questions. As she left, she just looked at me and said, "Mr. Blackwood, you seem very sad." Yes, I was sad. I finally got a lead on her in a small seaside town so remote it was barely on the map. My private jet landed at the nearest airport, and from there it was another 3-hour drive before I finally reached the town called Wind's Rest. The town was quiet, the air filled with the mixed scent of sea salt and sunshine. I found her at the end of a small alley lined with bougainvillea. She was in a small flower shop, her head bowed, carefully trimming a bouquet of white lisianthus. She had cut her waist-length hair into a short bob and was wearing a faded cotton dress. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting a soft halo around her. In that moment, she wasn't the Lancaster heiress, not the person I had been entangled with for 16 years. She was just an ordinary, peaceful girl. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice, the pain silencing me. I pushed open the shop door, and a wind chime tinkled. She looked up at the sound. The moment our eyes met, a flicker of faint surprise crossed her face before it settled back into a calm so profound it was like a dead, still lake. The eyes that had once been filled with stars whenever she looked at me were now empty. "What are you doing here?" She spoke first, her voice as flat as if she were addressing a stranger. My throat was dry. The 1,000 words I had prepared for this moment vanished. I just stared at her greedily, searching her face for any trace of the past. If "You're here to buy flowers. Feel free to look around," she said, lowering her head again to continue trimming the stems, as if my arrival were nothing more than a minor interruption. My pride, my ego, was crushed into dust in that instant. I walked toward her, my voice hoarse and unfamiliar. "Willow, I saw the diaries in the chest, but I couldn't say the words. It would be too cruel, like tearing open a wound that had just begun to heal. Instead, I pulled a black card from my pocket and placed it on the counter in front of her. "There's more than enough money in here," I said quietly. "In a villa in Kingsbridge, a few cars, you can do whatever you want. Just come back with me, please." Willow stopped what she was doing. She looked up and watched me quietly. Her gaze held no hatred, no resentment, only a complete and utter detachment. She let out a small, soft laugh, a laugh filled with a pity I couldn't understand. "Sincere Blackwood," she said slowly. "Those things, along with the Willow Lancaster who loved you for 16 years, you burned them to ash yourself. Flowers can't grow from ashes." My heart sank like a stone. I refused to give up. I bought the house across from her flower shop and watched over her day after day. I watched her open and close the shop, watched her smile and greet her neighbors, watched her bask in the sun with a lazy cat in her lap. Her life was peaceful and serene, and I was an out-of-place ghost, suffering in torment just outside her world. I once thought she couldn't live without me. Now I realized she was living better without me, and without her, I had forgotten how to breathe. One night during a torrential downpour, I finally broke. I ran to her door and pounded on the thin wood with all my strength. Willow Lancaster opened the door. Open up, rain streamed down my hair and face, mixing with my tears. I was a pathetic mess, like a child abandoned by the world. The door finally opened. She stood there, watching me quietly. Soaked to the bone, I begged in a raw voice, "Willow, come home with me." She didn't speak, she just turned, went back inside, and returned with an umbrella, which she handed to me. Sincere Blackwood, she looked at me, a flicker of emotion in her eyes, for the first time a weary, almost pitying look. "Your brother's death wasn't your fault, and it wasn't my fault. It was just an accident." She paused, then said softly, "You need to forgive yourself, and please, let me go." With that, she slowly, deliberately, closed the door in my face. The click of the latch was the sound of my last shred of hope being extinguished. I stood in the pouring rain, holding the umbrella she had given me, but I no longer had the strength to open it. The rain was cold, piercing, but it was nothing compared to the vast, desolate wasteland in my heart.